Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa. I'm a 60-year PhD candidate in the biomedical graduate studies at Penn. I'm also an intern in the Office of Research and Diversity Training. And today we have Sarah with us, who's going to be giving us advice on moving as part of our Adulting as a Grad Student series. So Sarah, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Sarah. I'm a fourth year PhD candidate in the biomedical graduate studies in the neuroscience program. And before coming to Penn, I was at William and Mary for undergrad.
Perfect. And so since you I'm guessing moved from there. You're coming, you're staying on the East Coast when you moved. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience going through like finding a roommate and just the process of moving for you?
Yeah, so I was really, really nervous about moving because I was coming from a smaller town, hadn't been to city before, had never even like gotten an apartment on my own before.
Hmm.
So when Penn Biomedical Graduate Studies sent out a spreadsheet having people put down information about themselves about looking for roommates, I immediately was like, yes, please.
Hmm.
And then, so I put all my information down, said that I was more interested in like the West Philly area. And then someone who would become my roommate in the cancer biology program, who was coming in as a first year, contacted me. And luckily, she actually did a post back at Penn, so she was already in Philly. So she was able to scout out apartments. We had this massive Google Doc, Sarah and Gloria's housing extravaganza, where we kept track of like all of the information, and she was able to visit and kind of find a place for us.
That's awesome. So then you didn't physically come see the apartment. She like was able to do all of that.
Right. Yep. So
Oh.
not until August did I see what the apartment actually looked like in person.
Nice. And so when you moved, did you send things from like where you were before? Or did you just buy everything here once you moved?
I came with a U-Haul. Luckily, my
Okay.
parents were able to come with me and help me move. So I think we had one or two cars of things and just a lot of like old furniture from family
Hmm.
members and stuff. I actually like stopped at my grandparents' farm on the way up and loaded up with like old furniture and kept coming.
I feel like grandparents are always trying to give things away too, so it's like all the things that you might need that they're not using, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All of my family members were like, "Do you need a kitchen table? Do you need a couch? Do you need this?" I was like, "Yes, please."
And so for your apartment in West Philly, did you have to find like did you need references for the apartment when you were gonna sign the contract? Or like did they look at your credit? Kind of like what was that process?
Yeah, I remember filling out an application where I had to put down like I think some of the credit information, that sort of thing. I actually had just gotten a credit card like my senior year of college because I knew I was going to need to have a credit score in
Right.
order to get a place. And but I think if there were references, they probably just contacted my roommate because she was actually like the main person on the lease and that was in contact and everything with
Got it.
the apartment complex.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one thing that students don't realize is that, yeah, like apartments, like they're gonna look into your credit, and so you should have some type of credit built up. And so thankfully you were able to get a credit card your senior year and do that with time.
Yeah, yeah, it was really helpful. And they also want to know things about like your salary coming in and all of that. And they want sometimes like bank statements to prove that like money is actually coming in.
Right. Make sure that you can pay your rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and so what were some like unexpected moving expenses that you can talk about?
Yeah. So like I said, I had never rented an apartment before, so I didn't realize that you basically need to put down 3 months worth of rent in the first
Hmm.
month. So it's like the security deposit first month and last month all together. So luckily I was splitting it with a roommate, but still, like just for me personally, it was just over $2,000, which
Yeah.
was not money that I expected to like need to have down. And there's also like the funny thing about, I'm not sure if this is all programs or Penn, but at least when I started, you don't get your first paycheck until the end of your first full month. So that was the end of September. So not only did I need to be able to put down just over $2,000, like in August, but then I wasn't getting paid with my grad student stipend until the end of September. So that was definitely a little stressful. I'm trying to think other weird moving expenses or just like getting dental insurance, which I
Hmm.
like hadn't had before, and um, BGS pays for half of it, but that's still something to do. And then also like I expenses in time, expenses in money eventually, but finding like doctors and other healthcare professionals you need, like you can go to student health, but finding where are you going to go to the dentist? Like if you need mental health care, like where are you going to go for that? And do they take your student health insurance and all of that? Like that is a huge part of moving. And I feel like where most of the burden was beyond like getting everything up here in my U-Haul.
Right. And so are those things that you did once you were here already, or those were things that you started to think about before moving, or just like during your first year, as you like got situated?
Yeah, it was during my first year. I did not take
Okay.
care of this ahead of time at all. We have like an assembly where they tell you a bunch of information, and they had like a checklist of everything you needed to do. So that's how I like learned about dental insurance being a thing, and that's
Hmm.
how I learned about needing to pay quarterly taxes because I
That's
just
a big one.
assume. Yeah, that's a big one. I assume that they just take that money out, but nope, you have to pay quarterly taxes. And I think the first quarter was like almost up by the time they like had that assembly, so there was some light panic in the audience. Um, but yeah, and then like mental health care was something that I figured out, and like other doctors and other health professionals. Like that was just something I figured out over my entire first year. And that was a lot of like getting recommendations from other students and faculty and like going through kind of the more formal Penn services and figuring out like what what like resources does Penn have for grad students that I want to take advantage of, and like what do I need to find outside of Penn?
Yeah. Yeah, those are all really good points, especially like the taxes. I think it's something that you don't realize that you have to save for. And so, yes, anyone that's watching this, you have to save to pay taxes. Don't forget. I remember our first year with my roommate kind of like talking about like, oh yeah, we have to pay taxes. And she was like, wait, what? And so that was, yeah, kind of a surprise, but I think that you'll learn hopefully how to A, manage your time and B, how to save money in grad school because you do have these like small or like I guess they become big expenses, right? But if you save monthly, then hopefully it won't be too bad.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was a big thing once I figured out like how much do I need to pay for quarterly taxes, then putting that into a monthly budget, and I guess that was a part of moving too for me was figuring out like how much money can I spend on groceries each week? And like when you add that and Wi-Fi and rent and what I'm setting aside for taxes, like
Mm-hmm.
what and for retirement, putting aside money for retirement,
Oh
which was
yeah.
a new thing, like what do I have left to like get dinner out if I want to?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of adulting things that to
Yes.
consider. I think at least I didn't think about most of those things before, because I also was like fortunate enough to live at home for undergrad, and so yeah, those were a lot of things that when I moved, I was like, oh no. But thankfully, I think with our stipend, like at least like living in Philly is affordable. And so it is enough to like do all these things, thankfully.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think like just living normal life, I didn't get to the point with my spending where it was like, oh no, I have to drastically change everything now that I've done the budget. Once I did the budget, I kind of kept doing what I was already doing and it was fine, but it just made me feel better like knowing that I had the money in all the pockets.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I wanted to go back to the apartment that you lived in West Philly. So why did you choose that area?
Yeah, like I said, since I was coming from a smaller town for undergrad and then the suburbs growing up, I really, when I visited West Philly, it felt kind of like home almost because it was like slower paced and even like the architecture kind of looks like the city where I'm from because it's on the like smaller side and have like the big porches out front and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I really liked that, it's not as much traffic and not as much
Mm-hmm.
people walking around and there's like I mean there are lots of parks and farmers markets and that sort of thing in the graduate hospital side, but it just felt slower and more leisurely, and that's like definitely what I needed like moving here for the first time. Like
Yeah.
now my priority is like how many restaurants are in my closest vicinity. Like my
Mm-hmm.
priority is now food, but I think at the time with that transition, I like wanted like space and quiet and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point of like once you're in the city, right, then you can kind of figure out like neighborhood wise, like where you want to live after that. So it's not like the first place that you move into is the place that you're going to live forever type
Yeah.
thing. And so that's, I think, really good that you start in one place and then you like figure out the city if you want to be close to like all the restaurants or like what type of restaurants and stuff. So, yeah. Do you live in Grad Hospital now?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've really upped the restaurants like per capita.
Yeah, that's where I live too. And it's also like residential-ish kind of, like
Mhm.
young professionals, but it's a nice neighborhood as well. Not as busy as like Center City, which is like in the middle of the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. And so you've given great advice so far. Is there anything else that you would want like the students to know? Any advice that or like things that you wish you knew before you moved that you would want to share?
Yeah, so a weird little nugget and then like some abstract philosophical advice because I feel like I have to. So, um, I guess this mostly just applies to people who are like under 26 coming into grad school and are on their parents' insurance, health
Mhm.
insurance. So, when I didn't realize just like a bit of health insurance 101, if you end up being covered by two health insurance policies, you have to tell them both and you don't get to choose which one you're on. So like the health insurance companies have these rules on like which one is your primary. You don't get to choose based on coverage. And so for me that was a really big thing because kind of what I would be paying for each appointment under my student health insurance was much, much lower compared to like my parents' health insurance that I was on.
Right.
So I actually ended up like making a decision to like drop my like family coverage so that way I would just be on the student insurance. So that way every time I went to an appointment it was $10 instead of $200 because
Wow, that
that's
yeah,
a
it's a big
huge
difference.
yeah, it's a huge out of pocket difference. So just like I guess for that pocket of people that are under 26 and on your parents' health insurance, um, yeah, you just have to like think through and contact the companies and figure out what's going to work best for you with like your prescriptions and if you have any regular appointment needs or something, like
Hmm.
what is going to be best for your budget
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that is great advice. I remember, well, yeah, I was on my parents' insurance, at least like for the dental part, and then when I got off it or when I turned 27, I had to get the Penn's dental insurance, and so yeah, those are all a lot of things to think about, but it's part of the process, and so it's better to know up front, right? And to have all the like advice you can. And you
For
said you
sure.
wanted to go do the philosophical advice too.
Yeah, thanks for remembering. Yeah, the philosophical advice is just to be patient with yourself and to give yourself time to figure out all of this because, like, even what we just talked about on this call has nothing to do with the transition to grad school, which is the big one, and to adjusting to classes and research and like building your community in a new place. And so, like, just be patient and
Mhm.
take the time and realize like you're not going to be able to just jump into like a full work schedule all the time and automatically have like that social life ready to go. Like there's just a lot of things that need to transition and like you'll eventually get there, but in the meantime be like patient.
Exactly. I feel like the adulting doesn't happen all at once. It happens little by little, and some days it doesn't even work out for you. And you're not even adulting,
this
so
is this is true. I mean, I'm still learning the adulting.
exactly, exactly. So I feel like, yeah, I'm a 6 year and I'm still figuring it out. So if you're, yeah, you'll get there. So don't worry.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for all the great advice. And yeah, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.